What is going on, everyone? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics. I think we got a spicy video today. We're talking about CGC. We're talking about, the graded comic books, and specifically one graded comic book that I have seen take damage inside the case. It seems much more often than any other book. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I had a book recently, for example, that I got back from CGC that I had. It was already graded. It was in my video that I put out, I don't know, maybe a week ago. And that book had detached inside of the case. And so because of that, it ultimately ended up getting a lower grade. So while it's not extremely common, this is not a very common thing where books can be damaged inside the case, it does happen. And so it is one of those things that you have to be aware of when you are getting books graded. It can help you make a decision on if you should get a book graded or not. For example, if a book has a very fragile spine, but it's still attached, you might not want to get that book graded because, like you saw with the book that I had, sometimes the pages can then separate from the cover inside the case, and you ultimately end up with more damage to the book, a detached cover. Obviously, that doesn't happen all that often, or else people wouldn't use companies like CGC, because then you would have all your books being damaged. Like, it is something that's not often, but it does occur. But there's one book that this does actually seem to happen to quite a bit. And it's actually a very expensive book, especially in high grade when this has a more pronounced impact. And one of those copies sold on Comic Link this week. So if you're not aware, Comic Link has a very big auction that has been going on. And by big, I mean high-end books. Like, you can see some pretty cool stuff. We've got a 3.5 Superman 1 that is just a beautiful copy, sold for, I think, $370,000. We had this 9.8 Hulk 181 that for some reason sold for $125,000. Like, the last couple sales have been between like 55 and 70. This one has this like CVA sticker on there, sold for $125. I don't know. We had a TMNT 1. I think it sold for around $60,000. I mean, a lot of cool stuff, selling for some big numbers. One of those cool books that sold for a very big number was Giant Size X-Men #1 in a 9.8. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the session #1 results. Those have completed. And so we're going to go to session #1, and we're just going to order these from the most expensive to least expensive. Then as I scroll down to Giant Size X-Men 1, you can see some of the other cool stuff that sold in this auction as well. So we'll go current bid, descending, and now you're going to see the most expensive books to the least expensive. So here you can see that Superman #1, $370,000, just stunning 3.5. Detective Comics 33 is 7.0 for $135,000. Here's that. I don't know. I don't get it. like that's $60,000 for a sticker. That's legitimately what that was. $60,000 for a sticker. Then TMNT 1, 9.8, pretty solid number considering his off-white to white pages, 64,000. A 9.8 Fantastic Four number 48. First Silver Surfer, Cameo Galactus, Amazing Fantasy 15, 5.5. A 9.0 first appearance of the Riddler, 48,000. I mean, some really cool big books. We're going to keep scrolling down until, this one. Only 3 on census. Marvel Spotlight 2, first Werewolf by Night, sold for 34,000. Crazy number. Like, I think a 9.6 sold recently for like 6,600. So for that 9.8, someone paid about 5 times as much. I mean, it's one of 3. It's never come up for sale before, at least publicly. It's not on GPA, and this one won't be on GPA either. This is Comic Link. But we'll keep scrolling down here. Cool stuff. And here is the Giant Size X-Men 1. Now, you might not be able to see it yet, but you can probably see it. This book, and I'll say, sold for $26,000 for an off-white to white page book. That was a big sale. The biggest off-white to white sale that we've seen in maybe like a year. So this is one of those things. Like, I tell people, in my opinion, you shouldn't really be like grading the book inside the case if it's just the book as it is. Like, if it hasn't received damage, like, it's kind of ridiculous to be like post grading the book. But if the book has clearly received damage inside the case, that is a different story. And so then that brings up the question, if this book receives damage inside the case, is it still the same grade? And it depends. Because if it's a low grade book, maybe it doesn't affect the grade at all. I mean, yeah, it sucks that it received some damage, but it doesn't affect the grade, not a big deal. If it's a 9.8, that's a different story. And now the other interesting thing with this book is I am almost certain this is the same 9.8 that I saw sell like 3 years ago. Because I like, you don't forget books like this. And because I remember I sent it to my older brother when it sold. I was like, look at this book. It looks like garbage. And so that's this one. So this is Giant Size X-Men 1, 9.8. Let's take a look at that right edge. Look at this thing. Look at that corner, crease, like fold, 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 fold. It's so bad. I mean, this one is terrible. And it's not unusual for this book. I don't know why that is. I don't know why Giant Size X-Men. I mean, maybe it's just because we see this book more. You know, it sells more. It's a bigger book. That's why I notice it. If it's because, I mean, obviously it's a square bound. Like maybe this book more often, the right edge for this square bound is cut where it has maybe a little overhang or something. It's strange how it does this, where it's really like a flat edge over here inside the CGC case, but it catches something, you know, and pushes in. And you see this all the time with this book. And so the question is this book still a 9.8? I mean, in my opinion, it is not. I don't know what it would get after you press it. You know, like, are there potentially little tears here now? Because, like, I mean, look at some of these. These are some pretty big indents. Like, can this actually get back to a 9.8, or is this book now like a 9.4 in the best case if it gets all pressed out? I mean, it might be. And the difference in price between a 9.4 and a 9.8 of Giant Size X-Men 1, and that's assuming like this isn't like there aren't like long creases here now. Pretty substantial. So we're going to jump over to GP analysis, and we're going to look at Giant Size X-Men 1. Just kind of look at the prices for this book. And so you'll see, like, here's the 9.8. And I checked all these sales from 2024. Every sale that's high here, these are all white page copies. The 33,000, 35, 36, and 34.5, all white page copies. The 24,000 and 22,200 are both off-white to white. I think they're both off-white to white. I don't think there was an off-white. I think they were both off-white to white. So this copy, off-white to white, 26,000, sold for more than any copy that's off-white to white in more than a year. So, I mean, this is one of those things where the reason I talk about this is because you need to know what stuff to look for. Like, there are certain books that are problematic, and this is one of them. And I'm not just saying that. Like, if we go over to Go Collect, okay, and the reason I like Go Collect is because they give you pictures so you can look at things very easily. And so if I filtered on the 9.8s, and I looked at the 9.8s that were here, there are 10 books here. So you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Of these 10 9.8s, 3 of them have right edge damage. I've got the 3 pulled up over here. You've got this one right here. It's a little harder to see on the white screen, but we can zoom in on it. You see this fold up in the corner up here. You see this fold in here, this fold in here, this fold in here. This might even be the same book. That's a big fold there too. That looks really similar. Let's check. I didn't check the cert. 9001. Let's see. It is. It's the same book. So this book here is the same book here that had all that edge damage. Then we've got this one here that sold for 24,000. Look at this right edge. Same thing. Folds in, folds in, folds in. A bunch of these like little edge folds on, you know, some down here too, down on this edge of this cover. Then we have this one here. This is a little bit harder to see, but there's a fold down in the lower right corner on that corner of this one. This one isn't nearly as significant. This one probably can press back to a 9.8. I wouldn't be surprised if this one can press back to a 9.8. But this one, I don't know. That's a lot of like little bends and things on the edge. And this one, same thing. Like, because this is actually the same book that sold just now. So out of 10, the last 10 recorded sales, going back to January of 23, this is, it's a 9.8 giant size X1, doesn't sell all that much. 30% of them, 3 of them, taking right edge damage. And someone buying it for full market. I mean, full blown market price. And the thing is, I remember the last time that this one sold because I'm almost certain this is the one where the person got it and they posted it on like a Facebook group or something, and people just lit into that book. And it's clearly still in the same case. Like nobody wants to take it out because they know it still says 9.8 in that corner. And clearly, buy the grade, not the book, right? I mean, I don't understand. Like people, I'll often make comments like this or speak to this kind of thing where people say like, oh, I mean, surely if something costs 10,000, 20,000, 5,000, 100,000, that the people check. They don't. I mean, I saw this book. I'm almost certain it's the one I saw on Comic Link. That's why it wasn't on GPA before. Sell 3 years ago. We saw it sell here. When was this sale? This sale was in 2023. And then we see it sell again here. And it's getting full market every single time. So people do not look at that kind of stuff. They just don't. They see the grade in the corner and they buy the book, even if it is $26,000. So, I mean, this is why I'm talking about this. Make sure you check for this kind of thing. Like, I'm not saying to regrade the books inside the case. Like that makes no sense. Okay. Like the whole purpose of third-party grading is that so that people don't have to do that. But when you see something really obvious like this, like if you saw, say you saw like a 9.8 that had a detached cover inside the case, like, that's not a 9.8 anymore. In this case, you have a 9.8 with tons of edge damage. This is not a 9.8 anymore. Just don't bid on it. Like just don't bid on that book. I mean, you're going to get it. You're going to notice it when you have it in person. You're going to be unhappy. And then you're just going to put it up for sale again. Like, I mean, I just don't understand. But yeah, I see it so much with this book. It's just mind blowing that it keeps happening. I don't know if this was graded 3 years ago. I don't know if something's been done maybe to help with this kind of stuff since then, but yeah, this book, in my opinion, is no longer a 9.8. After you press it, like, I don't know, like best case, maybe like a 9.4 or something. And what does a 9.4 go for? $4,800. Last sale, $4,800. I mean, that seems maybe a little low. I don't know. I mean, not really. I mean, there was a 44 last year, 5,000, 78, 54. I mean, it's probably close to 5,000, 5,100. That's $20,000 difference. And yeah, I mean, it's just not a 9.8, but buy the grade, not the book. All right. See you on the next one. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments. What do you think the grade is of this book now? I don't think it's a 9.8, but guess we'll never know.